Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be doing another coin review in which I basically just talk about a project from top to bottom. Before I get started, I would also like to remind everybody to subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my content. If you are already subscribed, hit the thumbs up because it helps me get more people to see my content. Also, if you'd like to help support my channel, the best way to do that is to pop over to my Patreon account and become one of my patrons. All the important links for this stuff will be in the video description down below like usual. Also, I have this shirt up for sale on my website. The cool thing about it is if you fold it, there's a secret message. So folding this backwards into a camera is way more difficult than it looks. The shirt says cryptocurrency, and then if you fold it, it says Candor. So if you like it and you want to pick one up, my website is in the description and I have a little merch spot on there. You can buy one if you're interested. Now that that's over with, let's get into it. So prior to doing the research for this video, I kept finding myself running into projects that seemed too similar to ones that I had already covered. I know that there's a lot of good competitive projects out there, but I really wanted to talk about something that's not similar to something that I've already covered. Plus, a friend of mine in the Discord server had mentioned this project, so I figured, hey, why not? First thing to mention is that I do not hold any Substratum. And I'd like to remind everybody that I am not a financial advisor. All investments have inherent risk. Please do your own research and do not trade off my content. All right, so what is Substratum? I'm going to quote directly from the white paper here. So Substratum is creating an open source foundation for a decentralized web that will provide unrestricted access to content and the sharing of information for users from across the globe. The primary objective is to tackle internet censorship and to restore the web to its original neutral environment. As a secondary goal, they plan on improving the way that people host and utilize web services by incentivizing the network users with its own cryptocurrency token. This will be essentially renting out their unused computing resources as a hosting platform for websites. Hosting costs are going to be billed through per-request microtransactions. This prevents the possibility of a payment being issued for unutilized resources. Let's talk about the project history a little bit. So the team behind Substratum is a US-based software development firm. Based on their bios, they all have a pretty extensive experience with developing and deploying software for many large companies like Apple, Facebook, Disney, and HP. Justin Tabb is the CEO and the co-founder. Abram Cookson is the CIO and the co-founder. And BJ Alman is the COO and the co-founder. Their ICO started on August 14th, 2017 and ended on September 14th, 2017. They had a bonus for the first week for investors who would receive an extra 15% sub tokens. The ICO price was around 7 cents. They had a minimum investment of 1 ETH and they had a hard cap of 150,000 ETH. They ended up raising a total of 13.8 million in US dollars. They stated that their ICO funds would be allocated as such: 30% for product awareness, 60% for product development, and 10% for network infrastructure. There was a coin burning after the ICO in which the team burned the remaining 120 million tokens. They state that there will be another token burn after the Bittrex listing, but the token burn amount has not been publicly stated yet. The founders and advisors received Substrate. Substrate is the coin that powers the Substratum network, for their efforts and their investments to get Substratum up and running. It is worth mentioning that they will not receive any of that token until the project is actually functioning. The main founder received 10 million Substrate. The team leads each received 1 million Substrate, and there were 5 team leads. And the advisors received 25% of the total investment. Onto their technology. So Substrate, as I mentioned before, is the coin that fuels the Substratum network. It is an ERC-20 compliant token based on the Ethereum blockchain. This means that it is currently a proof-of-stake coin. Someone from the team mentioned the idea of creating their own coin, and that's been tossed around a bit, but there are no solid plans in the works for that in the future. Their current circulating supply is 383 million coins, with eventual total supply of 472 million. I was not able to get a value on what the fees will be to use the platform. Substratum's end goal is to alleviate the threat of web censorship or regulation. On the surface level, Substratum's blockchain makes web surfing more secure and more private. The algorithms that run the network ensure data integrity without the need for services like Tor, which is an anonymous web browser, or a virtual private network, or VPN for short. Real quick, for those who don't know what a VPN is, a VPN allows you to create a secure connection to another network over the internet. VPNs can be used to access region-restricted websites and shield your browsing activity from any form of surveillance. I defined that quickly because I did not know what a VPN was when I started getting into crypto, so I definitely thought it was worth mentioning what the definition is. There are three major components to the sub project. They are the subhost, the subnode, and the subDNS. The subhost. This is a business or an entity that wishes to host sites, databases, and applications on the network using subcoins to pay the network members. Unlike normal providers, hosts on the Substratum network will pay per click, not for uptime. This creates an economical and direct relationship between a site's popularity and the cost of web hosting. The second piece is the Substratum node. These work like forwarding points on the network. When a user requests a site, nodes use artificial intelligence to find the fastest way to get that information to the person requesting it. Multiple nodes can work to fulfill a single request, which splits the data into unique parts for added security. And in return, the nodes will receive subcoins by serving these requests. I was unable to get a number from the team for the monetization incentive or what it would end up equaling. They said they need more testing on a live network. Lastly is the Substratum DNS. This allows users to create websites that operate on both the centralized and decentralized web without being forced to use subdomains. They also plan to have a feature called CryptoPay. It's a decentralized application being developed by the Substratum team that will run on top of the Substratum network. It is a payment gateway which website owners will be able to add to their site in order to accept payments through any publicly traded cryptocurrency. It will actually also be available outside of the Substratum network to be used as a standalone payment gateway. They're currently working on methods to allow conversion to fiat currency. The goal is to use Sub as a utility for facilitating the transaction. They boast that Substratum will have a one-click software. This means that you simply download the program on your computer and the basic setup will allow anyone to quickly and easily use it. They state that their goal is to have the project be self-governed, meaning that no single party has the ability to control what can or cannot be seen. Ideally, people who share dangerous content, such as something that might be terrorist related, would be identified by members of the Substratum network by voting content up or down. If a consensus is reached, obscene content would be removed. Substratum's voting algorithm takes a range of factors into consideration before removal of content, including each user's substrate count, how long they've been a member, and how often they're voting. This helps to prevent big organizations from gaming the system and minimizes the impact of political or opinion-based voting. The team stated that they've had a lot of technical challenges with all the different concepts they've come up with to implement the self-governance. They want to avoid a situation in which the platform slips into censorship. They want to tread carefully down this path. They also plan to use best-in-class compression, and they may use it in unique ways, but contrary to their original thought, they're not actually planning on creating a new compression algorithm. I honestly laughed a bit at this point when I was reading about compression algorithms. Does anybody else watch Silicon Valley? I love that show, and the only thing I could think of is about how Substratum is very similar to a real-life Pied Piper. That brings us to present day. So currently Substratum is at number 68 on CoinMarketCap with a market cap value of $268 million. You can buy Sub off Binance, KuCoin, and HitBTC. Some competitors to Substratum are blockchain projects like Shift, Store, MadeSafe, and Internex. Each project having its own way of trying to solve the storage of data in a decentralized way, while incentivizing people to share their spare disk space. Substratum will also be competing with centralized data hosting solutions like Amazon Web Services. The project just went open source like no more than a week ago. They stated the reason they waited was because they weren't at the point where they felt that the code could be open source because it was still in development, as well as apparently that day coincided with the same day that the US net neutrality repeal was going into effect. The team also did state that they wanted to make sure the project was protected from direct competition, basically just to ensure that they were a few steps ahead, which is understandable. That being said, they're not done with developing the project is just now open source. Things to look forward to in the future. This Friday, May 11th, 2018, the Substratum node will contain a very basic UI so that the average person will be able to run the node software from a package. You'll basically be able to toggle the software on and off right from the UI. They also added a command line utility that will change your DNS settings, which means you no longer have to do that manually. Up to this point, there was a functioning product, but it required someone who was a bit more tech savvy to set it up. The founder stated in his recent video that this release is still in beta, and he heavily emphasized the fact that the user interface is very, very basic. But hey, at least it's still a tangible working product for people who want a product that's a little bit easier to use. They stated that their version 2 should be rolling out in the middle of 2018. This will include a payment gateway called CryptoPay, which I touched on before, and it will enable not only credit card transactions, but also cryptocurrency transactions for all websites and applications on the network. So if a user wants to pay with Litecoin, they will initiate a microtransaction that will convert Bitcoin into Substrate, and then they will pay the vendor in fiat. This conversion should happen seamlessly in the background. On to some pros. So the platform is peer-to-peer, making the network actually decentralized. This is important because we have been dealing with issues with the law against net neutrality, and this would also allow for people in countries with restricted internet access be able to browse freely. Theoretically, it's cost efficient. They state that you're only paying for what you use via a microtransaction. But again, I wasn't able to get an actual value from the team. There are some serious use cases for this project. I often struggle with trying to visualize a future or real-world use for something that will, easily be adopted over other projects. However, I genuinely believe that there is a need for a decentralized internet, and if Substratum can be successful in setting that up and pulling it off, I think that they would be very easily adopted. Next up is the roadmap. I thought they just came out with a roadmap, but they told me that they had an old one, so they just recently updated the new one, so it's a little bit better, but they just updated their roadmap, which is on their website now for the community. On to the cons. So they have a number of competitors in two different niches, really. Data storage and data hosting. It'll be interesting to see how they do up against big players like Amazon. As far as I know, there's currently no formal Substratum wallet. It's just stored on an Ethereum address. So I know that's a lot less cons than usual, but again, the project is in development and we need to see what they come up with or come out with over the next year before we can really pass judgment. Final thoughts. The major barrier I see for this project is adoption. In order for it to be really successful, they need to make it super easy to use and convenient as downloading just a new web browser for the average person. Before moving on to my next thought, I just want to preface with the fact that my opinion of the project and of the team are two separate things, and I want to mention some stuff that felt, just kind of off. My initial interactions with the team were very sparse because they were busy, but I had mentioned to them that I was somewhat frustrated by this, and they responded very positively and ended up being extremely helpful afterwards. On to my final thought. So as I covered before, they just released the roadmap. I asked a member of the team how they communicated with their community prior to that, and he stated that they didn't like to place dates on when things were to be expected because they didn't want to disappoint the community. So they gave everyone approximately a 1 to 7 day heads up before making an announcement. While I understand the stress that must be associated with having deadlines, I think that it's a little ridiculous that they didn't have a roadmap for a year, or they had a roadmap but it was very basic and now they have a newer one. And not only that, but their GitHub wasn't public until like last week. So that means for the last year, the community had very little ways to track the progress and had next to no way to see what the team was doing outside of the direct updates from the team themselves. And to make this all the more frustrating, the roadmap that they finally released on their website doesn't even have dates. Just shows upcoming stuff. I thought that felt like that negated their whole argument about not being constrained to specifics. As a comparative note, the team had stated that this was because they wanted to reward long-term holders and avoid the possibility of insider trading related to buying and selling around roadmap dates. Anyway, I want to clarify that I don't think that makes the team untrustworthy. I do, however, feel it was a poor decision on their part. People need to remember that this space, most of these projects are a white paper and a promise. And in order to keep people interested and supportive, you have to keep them included. That being said, the team told me that they do have multiple Q&A sessions on a weekly basis, and they open their office once a month for anyone to come in and visit to ask questions if they want, which I think is pretty neat. The upside is that this is all technically old news anyways, because now their GitHub is public and the roadmap is on their website, so everyone should go check it out and have a look. Right. Well, that about wraps up my rant and my review of Substratum, so thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next week.